She accepted his rejection, and the Alpha King snapped. The secret in the Alpha King's vault. The night I discovered what my husband really was, I wasn't supposed to be in his study at all. My name is Arya Blackwell, and 3 months ago, I married the most powerful man in the werewolf world, Alpha King Damon Blackwell. It was an arranged marriage, a political alliance between his kingdom and my father's dying pack. I was the sacrificial lamb, the pretty bride who smiled for the cameras while her heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. Because the truth? Damon didn't want me. He made that painfully clear on our wedding night when he walked out of our honeymoon suite and didn't return for 3 days. But tonight, everything changed. Welcome to my channel, Crownfire Tales. Don't forget to like and subscribe, because what I'm about to tell you will leave you speechless. It was 2 a.m. when I heard the screaming. Not a human scream. Something animal, raw, and filled with agony that made every hair on my body stand on end. I was alone in the massive royal estate. Damon had left for business again, which I'd learned was code for visiting his mistress, Lady Seraphina, the beautiful vampire who had his heart long before I became his unwanted queen. I should have stayed in bed. I should have pulled the silk covers over my head and pretended I heard nothing. But something pulled me forward. An invisible thread tugging at my chest, leading me down the marble corridors I'd been forbidden to enter. The screaming was coming from below. From the vault. Descent into darkness. My bare feet were silent on the cold stone stairs. The air grew thicker as I descended, heavy with the scent of blood, sweat, and something else, magic, dark and ancient, that made my wolf stir uneasily inside me. The vault door was open. Just a crack, but enough for me to see inside. And what I saw made my blood turn to ice. Damon stood in the center of a massive underground chamber, shirtless, his muscular back covered in strange black symbols that seemed to move across his skin like living tattoos. His hands were raised, and between his palms floated a sphere of pure darkness, not shadow, but something deeper, something wrong that seemed to absorb the light around it. Chained to the wall was a man, or what used to be a man. His body was twisted, bones jutting at wrong angles, his screams turning to gurgles as the darkness from Damon's hands wrapped around him like hungry snakes. "Please," the man begged, his voice barely human. "I told you everything. I gave you the names." "You lied," Damon said, his voice cold and emotionless. It wasn't the voice of the distant but civil husband I knew. This was something else. Something monstrous. "You thought you could betray me to the council, sell information about my father's death, and I wouldn't find out?" The darkness tightened, and the man's scream cut off abruptly as his body went rigid. Then he simply dissolved. Turned to ash that drifted to the floor like snow. I must have made a sound, a gasp, a whimper, something, because Damon's head snapped toward the door. Our eyes met. And for the first time since our wedding day, I saw real emotion in those cold gray eyes. Fear. The terrible truth. Arya. My name on his lips was a warning. He lowered his hands, and the darkness evaporated, but those symbols on his back continued to writhe. "You shouldn't be here." "What are you?" I whispered, my hand gripping the doorframe so hard my knuckles turned white. "What was that?" He moved toward me with that predatory grace that made lesser wolves tremble. Even now, despite the horror I'd just witnessed, my traitorous body responded to his presence, the mate bond I'd tried so hard to ignore flaring to life. "Go back to your room, Arya. Forget what you saw." "How can I forget that?" My voice cracked. "You just killed that man with shadow magic," Damon said flatly, stopping just inches from me. Up close, I could see the exhaustion in his face, the shadows under his eyes. The forbidden art. The reason my father was assassinated. The reason the council wants me dead. My mind reeled. Shadow magic was a myth, a dark tale told to scare young wolves. Practitioners were said to trade pieces of their soul for power, becoming something neither wolf nor witch but something in between. Something cursed. "You're a shadow walker," I breathed. That's why you wouldn't consummate our marriage. That's why you avoid me. You're afraid I'll discover. I'm afraid I'll kill you, Damon interrupted, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. He raised his hand, and I saw them clearly now, thin black veins running up his arms like poison in his bloodstream. Every time I touch you, every time I'm near you, the darkness wants to consume you. You're pure, Arya. Your wolf is light and goodness. And I am rot and ruin. He turned away, his broad shoulders tense. That man I killed? He was part of a conspiracy to overthrow me. There are 12 more just like him, embedded in my own court, waiting for the right moment to strike. I've been hunting them alone because I can't trust anyone. You can trust me, I heard myself say. Damon laughed, but there was no humor in it. Trust you? You've been a prisoner here for 3 months. I've treated you like an unwanted burden. Giving you every reason to hate me. I don't hate you, I said softly. I'm terrified of you right now, yes. But I don't hate you. He turned back to face me, and something flickered in those gray eyes. Surprise. Hope. Then it was gone, replaced by his usual cold mask. Go to bed, Arya. Tomorrow, I'll arrange for you to return to your father's pack. This marriage was a mistake. No. The word hung in the air between us. Damon stared at me like I'd grown a second head. The choice. I'm not leaving, I said, forcing strength into my voice even as my knees shook. You said there are conspirators in your court. That means you need allies. I may be just a weak omega in your eyes, but I'm still your wife. Your queen. And I'm not running away. You have no idea what you're saying, Damon growled, and suddenly he was right in front of me again, his hand gripping my chin, forcing me to meet his eyes. The darkness inside me is a living thing, Arya. It whispers to me every second of every day, telling me to take, to consume, to destroy. And you, his thumb brushed across my lower lip, and I felt electricity shoot through me, you make it so much worse. Why? I breathed. Because you're my true mate, he admitted, his voice raw with anguish. Not just an arranged marriage. The moon goddess bound us together, and every instinct I have screams at me to claim you. But if I do, if I give in for even a moment, the shadow magic will use that connection. It will drain you, consume your light, turn you into a husk. My heart hammered against my ribs. True mates. The rarest, most sacred bond in our world. And we couldn't act on it without destroying each other. There has to be a way, I whispered. Some kind of cure, or control. There is, a new voice said from behind us. We both spun around. Standing at the top of the stairs was Lady Seraphina, Damon's supposed mistress. She was breathtaking as always, raven hair, porcelain skin, crimson lips. But her expression wasn't one of a scorned lover. It was calculated. Cold. Hello, husband, she purred, descending the stairs slowly. Did you really think I wouldn't notice you sneaking down here every night? That I wouldn't piece together your little secret? Seraphina, Damon's voice was deadly quiet, what are you doing here? She smiled, and it was like watching a snake bare its fangs. I came to make you an offer. You want to control your shadow magic? I can help you. The vampires have been studying dark arts for millennia. We know how to bind it, channel it, make it serve you instead of consuming you. Hope flared in Damon's eyes for a brief second before suspicion took over. What's the price? Seraphina's gaze slid to me, and something cruel flickered across her beautiful face. Divorce the girl. Marry me instead. Form a political alliance between wolves and vampires. And in exchange, I'll teach you to master the darkness completely. She tilted her head. Or refuse, and watch the shadow magic slowly eat away at your soul until you become the very monster the council fears. Your choice, my king. Damon's jaw clenched. The symbols on his back began to glow faintly, responding to his rising anger. And in that moment, standing in that blood-stained vault with my husband's curse literally written on his skin and his vampire lover offering a devil's bargain, I realized something crucial. This wasn't just about forbidden magic or political conspiracies. This was about power. About who would control the Alpha King. About who would own his soul. Serafina thought she'd already won. That she'd cornered him perfectly. But she didn't know one critical thing. The power I'd been hiding. Before Damon answers, I said, stepping forward despite every instinct screaming at me to flee, I have a counteroffer. Both Damon and Serafina turned to stare at me. I pulled down the collar of my nightgown, revealing the mark I'd kept hidden for 3 months, a silver crescent moon birthmark that had appeared on my skin the night of our wedding. It was glowing faintly, pulsing with ethereal light. I'm not just an Omega, I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. I'm a lunar vessel. The first one born in 3 centuries. My light magic doesn't just complement your darkness, Damon. It can balance it. Contain it. Make you whole. Serafina's face went pale. That's impossible. Lunar vessels are extinct. Clearly not, I interrupted, meeting her shocked gaze with newfound confidence. My father kept it hidden to protect me. But the moon goddess doesn't make mistakes. She bound me to an Alpha King cursed with shadow magic for a reason. I turned to Damon, whose expression had shifted from shock to something that looked almost like awe. So here's my offer, husband. Forget Serafina's bargain. Forget the divorce. Give me 30 days. Let me try to help you control the darkness. If I fail, I'll walk away and let you make whatever deal you want. And if you succeed? Damon asked quietly. I stepped closer, so close I could feel the dangerous heat radiating from his cursed body. So close that the mate bond between us flared like wildfire, painful and perfect and terrifying all at once. If I succeed, I whispered, you'll finally give me the wedding night you denied me 3 months ago. For a long moment, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Then Damon's lips curved into the first real smile I'd ever seen on his face, dangerous, devastating, and full of dark promise. 30 days, he agreed. But Arya? If the darkness tries to hurt you, I'm ending this. Even if it kills me. Serafina let out a furious hiss. You're both fools. She'll die screaming, and you'll become the monster you've been fighting. Get out, Damon commanded, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. And Serafina? If I find out you're one of the 12 conspirators, your ancient vampire blood won't save you from what I'll do. She fled up the stairs, her footsteps echoing like a retreat. We were alone again in that dark vault, 2 broken souls bound together by magic neither of us fully understood. Damon reached out and took my hand. The moment our skin touched, black lightning met silver light in a shower of sparks that should have hurt but instead felt like coming home. You really think you can save me? He asked, vulnerability creeping into his voice for the first time. I squeezed his hand, ignoring the way the shadow magic tried to creep up my arm, held back only by the light blazing from my mark. I think we can save each other, I said. But first, you need to tell me everything. The curse, the conspirators, your father's death. No more secrets, Damon. If we're doing this, we're doing it together. He nodded slowly, then pulled me close, close enough that I could feel his heartbeat matching mine, close enough that the darkness and light swirling between us found a fragile, dangerous balance. Together, he whispered against my hair. And somewhere above us, in the cold halls of the royal estate, Lady Serafina made a phone call that would change everything. It's her, she hissed to whoever answered. The lunar vessel has revealed herself. Activate the contingency plan. If the king cannot be controlled, he must be destroyed. And the girl? She's the key to everything. Bring her to me alive. The line went dead. In 30 days, one of us would be victorious. But tonight, as I stood in my cursed husband's arms for the first time, I had no idea that the real enemy wasn't the shadow magic. It was the ancient prophecy Seraphina had just set in motion, a prophecy that required the blood of a lunar vessel to open a gate that had been sealed for 1,000 years. A gate to something far worse than any curse or conspiracy. Something that would make Damon's darkness look like a candle compared to the sun. Forbidden romance and secrets. The first lesson in darkness. The next morning, I woke up in Damon's bed for the first time since our wedding. Not in the way I'd once dreamed about, there had been no passion, no consummation. Instead, I'd fallen asleep at his desk while he explained the intricate web of conspiracies threatening his throne, only to wake with his jacket draped over my shoulders and sunlight streaming through windows I'd never been allowed near before. Damon stood by those windows now, shirtless, the black symbols on his back dormant but still visible like a map of scars. He was staring out at his kingdom, the vast forests and mountains that stretched as far as the eye could see, all under his protection. All under his curse. "You talk in your sleep," he said without turning around. "You called out for your mother." My chest tightened. "She died when I was 10. A rogue attack." "I know." His voice was soft. "I had you investigated before the wedding. I know everything about you, Arya. Your favorite color is silver. You hate salmon but love steak. You read romance novels and hide them under your mattress because your father said they were frivolous." I sat up, pulling his jacket tighter around me. "You've been watching me?" "Protecting you," he corrected, finally turning to face me. In the morning light, he looked younger, less like the terrifying shadow walker and more like a man carrying the weight of the world. "The conspirators want to use you against me. They have since the day we married. Why do you think I kept you isolated? Why I stayed away? To keep me safe, I realized. And to keep you from becoming attached to a monster," he added bitterly. "But it seems I failed at both." He crossed the room in 3 long strides and knelt in front of me, bringing us eye to eye. This close, I could see the silver flecks in his gray irises, could smell cedar and smoke and something uniquely him. "Last chance, Arya," he said quietly. "Walk away now. I'll have Khal escort you back to your father's territory with enough gold to ensure your comfort for life. You can pretend these 3 months never happened." Instead of answering, I reached out and traced one of the black symbols on his chest. He flinched but didn't pull away. The moment my glowing mark touched his cursed skin, the symbol lit up, black lightning meeting silver light in a shower of sparks. But this time, it didn't hurt. This time, the darkness retreated slightly, just enough for me to feel the warmth of his actual skin beneath. "Does it always hurt?" I asked. "The shadow magic?" "Every second," he admitted, his voice rough. "It's like being burned alive from the inside out. The only relief is when I use it, when I let it consume something else instead of me. Like that man last night." "He was guilty," Damon said firmly. "He sold information that got 12 of my wolves killed. But yes, killing him gave me a few hours of peace." His jaw clenched. "Do you understand now? I'm not a good man, Arya. I've done terrible things. The shadow magic feeds on death and pain, and I fed it well. The binding ritual. I should have been horrified. Any sane person would have run screaming. Instead, I found myself cupping his face, forcing him to maintain eye contact. "Then let's start now," I said. "Teach me how to help you. Show me what I need to do." Something flickered in his eyes, hope and fear warring for dominance. "It will hurt you. I'm stronger than I look." "You're also stubborn as hell," he muttered, but stood up, pulling me with him. "Fine. But we do this properly. There's a binding ritual, a way to temporarily link our energies so you can help contain the darkness. But Arya, once we do this, there's no going back. The mate bond will strengthen. You'll feel everything I feel. And if the shadow magic overwhelms you—" "It won't," I interrupted with more confidence than I felt. "The moon goddess chose me for this. I have to believe there's a reason." Damon studied me for a long moment, then nodded. "Get dressed. We're going to the sanctuary. The sanctuary was hidden deep in the mountain behind the estate, accessible only through a secret passage from Damon's study. As we descended into the earth, the air grew colder, heavier with ancient magic. My father built this, Damon explained as we walked through tunnels lit by glowing crystals. After he contracted the shadow curse trying to save our pack from extinction. He spent the last 10 years of his life researching ways to control it. And the council killed him for it, I said, remembering the story he'd told me last night. They called it an execution. Said he was too dangerous to live. Damon's voice hardened. They didn't care that he was trying to find a cure. They didn't care that he never used the darkness to hurt innocents. They were afraid, so they murdered him while I watched. We emerged into a massive circular chamber. The walls were covered in the same black symbols that marked Damon's skin, but here they were inlaid with silver, light containing darkness in perfect geometric patterns. In the center of the room stood a raised platform with 2 circles carved into the stone, connected by intricate runes. This is where my father performed the binding ritual with my mother, Damon said, his voice echoing in the vast space. She was human, but she had light magic in her bloodline. For 10 years, she helped him control the curse. And then? He stopped abruptly, his jaw clenching. What happened? I asked gently. The council happened, he said bitterly. They couldn't kill my father while my mother was alive, her light magic protected him. So they poisoned her first. Made it look like illness. By the time we realized what was happening, she was too weak to stop them from executing him. I reached for his hand, and this time he let me take it. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry, he said, looking down at our intertwined fingers where light and shadow danced together. Just promise me that if this gets too dangerous, you'll tell me. My parents' love killed them both, Arya. I won't let history repeat itself. It won't, I said firmly. Because we're going to break this curse, expose the conspirators, and make damn sure the council never hurts anyone again. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. When did you get so fierce? I've always been fierce, I shot back. You just never bothered to notice. The connection. The binding ritual was simpler than I expected but far more intense. We stood in the 2 circles, facing each other. Damon had stripped to the waist, and I wore only a thin white dress that allowed my mark to shine freely. The symbols on the walls began to glow as he started chanting in an ancient language I didn't recognize. The air between us shimmered, and I felt the mate bond, the connection I'd been suppressing for 3 months, suddenly roar to life with frightening intensity. Heat flooded my body. Not the gentle warmth of normal mate recognition, but a searing, all-consuming fire that made my knees buckle. Through the bond, I could feel Damon's emotions crashing into me like waves, fear, desire, guilt, longing, and beneath it all, an agonizing pain that threatened to drown us both. Arya. Damon's voice cut through the chaos. Focus on your mark. Let your light answer the darkness. I pressed my hand to the glowing crescent moon on my chest. Immediately, silver light burst from my skin, shooting across the space between us and slamming into Damon's chest. He gasped, stumbling backward, but the light wrapped around him like chains, not restraining, but grounding. The black symbols on his skin flared in response, darkness rising to meet light, and for a terrifying moment I thought we'd both be consumed. Then something clicked into place. The light and darkness stopped fighting. Instead, they began to spiral around each other, 2 forces finding balance for the first time. Through the bond, I felt the exact moment Damon's agony eased. It didn't disappear, the shadow magic was still there, still hungry, but my light was holding it back, giving him room to breathe. It's working, he breathed, wonder in his voice. Arya, it's actually working. But the effort was taking its toll on me. I could feel the darkness probing at my defenses, looking for weakness, trying to find a way past my light to the vulnerable soul beneath. Sweat beaded on my forehead. My legs shook with the effort of maintaining the connection. Too much, I gasped. Damon, it's too much. He was beside me in an instant, catching me as my knees gave out. The moment he touched me, the connection stabilized. His strength flowed into me, and my light wrapped around him in return, and suddenly we weren't two separate people fighting separate battles. We were one. The truth in his kiss. "I've got you," Damon whispered, lowering us both to the ground. We sat tangled together on the cold stone, our hearts beating in sync, our breaths matching perfectly. Through the bond, I could feel everything he felt. The constant burning pain of the curse, yes, but also his fierce protectiveness, his crippling fear of hurting me, and beneath all of that, love. Deep, consuming, terrifying love that he'd been burying for 3 months because he thought it would destroy me. "You love me," I whispered, looking up into his face. He closed his eyes, as if he could hide from the truth now that our souls were connected. "I've loved you since the moment I saw you walking down the aisle toward me. You were so beautiful and so brave, and I knew, that I would destroy you if I let myself have you." "You won't destroy me," I said, reaching up to touch his face. "We're stronger together. Can't you feel it? The darkness and the light, they balance each other." "For now," he said, opening his eyes. The gray had lightened to silver, matching my mark. "But Arya, there's something you don't know. Something I haven't told you about the curse." Dread pooled in my stomach. "What?" "It's not permanent," he said quietly. "Or rather, it doesn't have to be. There's a way to break it completely, to free me from the shadow magic forever." Hope surged through me. "Then why haven't you?" "Because it requires a sacrifice," he interrupted, his voice heavy with grief. "A lunar vessel has to willingly give their life force to purify the darkness. That's why Serafina wants you dead, Arya. She knows that as long as you're alive, I have hope. But if you die trying to save me," his voice cracked, "if I lose you the way my father lost my mother, the shadow magic will consume me completely. I'll become the monster the council always feared." The pieces clicked together with horrible clarity. That's what the prophecy means. That's why Serafina called me the key. "She wants to trigger my transformation," Damon said bitterly. "She thinks if she kills you and turns me into a complete shadow walker, she can control me. Use me as a weapon to wage war against the council, against everyone who ever wronged the vampires." "But she's wrong," I said fiercely. "Because I'm not going to die. We're going to find another way." "There is no other way," Damon said, pulling me closer. "My father searched for decades. The curse can only be broken by—" "Then we'll be the first to find a different solution," I interrupted. I didn't reveal myself as a lunar vessel just to become a sacrifice. "We have 29 days left, Damon. That's 29 days to research, to experiment, to find a way to break the curse without anyone dying." He stared at me like I was something precious and impossible. "You really believe that?" "I have to," I said simply. "Because the alternative is losing you, and I just found you. I'm not giving up that easily." For a long moment, he just looked at me. Then, slowly, carefully, he lowered his head and kissed me. It wasn't the gentle first kiss of a new romance. It was desperate, consuming, a drowning man finding air. Through the bond, I felt his restraint crumbling, felt 3 months of denied desire crashing through both of us with the force of a hurricane. The darkness rose in response, but so did my light. They spiraled around us, a vortex of silver and black that lit up the entire chamber. The symbols on the walls blazed. The very air crackled with power. And for the first time since his father's curse had marked him, Damon kissed his mate without pain. The ultimate power and revenge. The trial of kings. The council chamber erupted into chaos. Half the counselors were on their feet, shouting accusations. The other half sat frozen in shock, staring at the shadow walker who had just materialized in their sacred hall with his supposedly weak Omega bride glowing like a living star beside him. "Silence!" Damon's command cracked through the air like thunder, infused with alpha authority so potent that every wolf in the room, even the ancient counselors, felt their necks instinctively bow. But Counselor Aldrich recovered quickly. He was a master manipulator, after all, with 2 decades of practice. You dare bring your dark magic into these hallowed halls? Aldrich's voice dripped with righteous fury as he addressed the other counselors, deliberately avoiding eye contact with Damon. This is exactly what I warned you about. The Shadow Walker has finally lost control. He murdered Lady Seraphina in cold blood, and now he threatens us all. I murdered no one, Damon said coldly, his hand still locked with mine. Through our bond, I could feel him drawing strength from our connection, using my light to keep the shadow magic from overwhelming him in this moment of high stress. But I know who did. Kyle, the files. Kyle strode forward and slammed a heavy folder onto the counselor's desk. Photographs spilled out, surveillance images, financial records, intercepted communications. 20 years of carefully compiled evidence. What you're looking at, Damon continued, his voice cutting through the chamber like a blade, is proof of a conspiracy that began the night my father was executed. A conspiracy led by Counselor Aldrich to systematically destroy the royal bloodline and seize control of all supernatural territories. Murmurs rippled through the council. Several members leaned forward to examine the documents, their expressions shifting from skepticism to shock. These are forgeries. Aldrich snarled, but I heard the tremor in his voice. Fear. Desperate lies from a cursed king who knows his reign is over. Is that your signature on the bank transfer? I interrupted, my voice clear and steady as I pointed to a specific document. My mark blazed bright enough to illuminate the paper. The one authorizing payment to a vampire mercenary group 3 days before the Queen Mother's poisoning? The chamber went deadly silent. Aldrich's face flushed red. How dare you speak, girl? You have no authority here. She has every authority, a new voice rang out from the back of the chamber. Everyone turned. An ancient woman stepped forward from the shadows, Elder Moira, the oldest living member of the council, a witch who had served for over 3 centuries. She was considered neutral, untouchable, the moral compass of the supernatural world. That mark on her chest, Elder Moira said, her milky eyes somehow seeing through the crowd to pin me in place, is the seal of the lunar vessel. I have not seen one in my lifetime. She is not just the Alpha King's bride, she is chosen by the moon goddess herself. The old woman's gaze shifted to Aldrich. And you, counselor, will address her as Queen Aria. Or you will address her not at all. Aldrich's jaw clenched so hard I heard his teeth grind. But he bowed stiffly. My apologies, Your Majesty. The honorific felt like acid in his mouth, and I savored every syllable. The web unravels. Elder Moira gestured to the evidence. Let us examine these claims properly. King Damon, present your case. For the next hour, we laid it all out. The conspiracy wasn't just about killing Damon's father, it was far more elaborate. Aldrich had been working with a faction of vampires, rogue witches, and corrupted wolf packs to destabilize the supernatural balance of power. The plan was elegant in its cruelty: eliminate the royal bloodline, fragment the wolf territories into warring factions, then swoop in as the savior who could restore order. Aldrich would become the new king, backed by vampire gold and witch magic, ruling over a supernatural world that would never again challenge him. Damon's father had discovered the plot, which is why he'd contracted the shadow curse. He'd stolen it from a captured vampire weapon, hoping to use its power to protect his family and kingdom. But the curse had been a trap. It made him appear dangerous, gave the council justification to execute him. And my mother? Damon's voice was ice as he stared down Aldrich. Was poisoning her slowly, watching her waste away over 6 months, was that part of your elegant plan too? Aldrich said nothing, but his silence was confession enough. Lady Seraphina was your accomplice, I added, picking up the thread. The pieces had clicked together in my mind during our shadow portal journey. She was supposed to seduce Damon, gain his trust, and either kill him or turn him into a complete shadow walker that she could control. But she failed. So you killed her to tie up loose ends and frame Damon in one move. You have no proof of that, Aldrich said, but his composure was cracking. Actually, Kyle interjected, stepping forward with a silver recording device, we do. Lady Seraphina was paranoid. She recorded every conversation she had with you, counselor. Insurance, she called it. We found the devices hidden in her quarters after her death. He pressed play. Seraphina's voice filled the chamber, cold and calculating. The girl is stronger than we anticipated. Her light magic is genuine. If we don't act soon, she'll actually save him from the curse. Then Eldric's voice, unmistakable, then accelerate the timeline. Kill her during the next blood moon ritual. Make it look like the shadow magic consumed her. That will break him completely. And if it doesn't? Then I'll kill you both myself. I've come too far to let a cursed king and his glowing bride ruin everything. The recording ended. The council chamber was silent as a tomb. Elder Moira stood slowly, her ancient face carved from granite. Counselor Eldric. You are hereby charged with treason, conspiracy to commit regicide, murder of Queen Mother Elena, and the assassination of Lady Seraphina. How do you plead? The king's revenge. What happened next would be whispered about in supernatural circles for generations. Damon broke free from the warriors restraining him. But he wasn't consumed by shadow magic. Instead, our bond flared to life, and he channeled every ounce of darkness through our connection. I caught it. Transformed it. And sent it back as pure, concentrated power. Together, light and shadow perfectly balanced, we became something the supernatural world had never seen before. Not a shadow walker. Not a lunar vessel. A twilight sovereign. The remaining shadow beasts didn't stand a chance. We moved as one, Damon's lethal combat skills guided by my purifying light. Every beast we touched transformed, the curses burning away to reveal the tortured souls beneath. Eldric tried to run. Damon caught him at the chamber doors, slamming the counselor against the wall hard enough to crack stone. My father died because of you, Damon growled, his hand around Eldric's throat. The shadow magic in him was screaming for blood, for revenge, for the satisfaction of ending the man who had destroyed his family. Through our bond, I felt him teetering on the edge. Damon, I said softly, walking over to place my hand on his shoulder. Don't let him turn you into what they feared. You're better than that. He killed them, Damon said, his voice breaking. He killed my parents. He tried to kill you. He deserves justice, I interrupted. Not revenge. There's a difference. For a long moment, Damon stood frozen, caught between the dark urges of his curse and the light of our bond. Then he stepped back, releasing Eldric. Elder Moira, Damon said, his voice steady. I leave his fate to the council's judgment. The ancient witch nodded approvingly. A wise choice, King Damon. She gestured to the guards. Take Eldric to the dungeons. He will stand trial for his crimes. And this time, her milky eyes fixed on the disgraced counselor, there will be no escape. As Eldric was dragged away, screaming threats and curses, the council chamber slowly settled. The barriers came down. The freed wolves, former shadow beasts, knelt before us in gratitude and allegiance. And Elder Moira descended from her seat to stand before Damon and me. You have proven something today that many thought impossible, she said. That shadow and light need not be enemies. That the curse can be controlled, even purified. She looked at me, a slight smile on her ancient face. And you, Queen Aria, have shown us the true purpose of the lunar vessel. Not sacrifice, but salvation. The coronation. 3 days later, we stood in that same council chamber, but this time for a very different ceremony. Damon wore the royal regalia of the Alpha King, a crown of silver and onyx that caught the light and seemed to glow with its own inner fire. The symbols on his back were still there, but they'd changed. They were no longer purely black. Silver threads wove through them now, light and shadow in perfect harmony. I stood beside him in a gown of white silk that sparkled with crushed diamonds, my mark visible and glowing above my heart. The entire supernatural world had gathered, not just wolves, but vampires, witches, fae, every species represented. They'd come to witness the coronation of the first Twilight sovereigns. Elder Moira performed the ceremony, her voice strong despite her age. "King Damon Blackwell," she intoned, placing a hand on his head. "You have walked through shadow and emerged into light. You have faced the curse and conquered it. You have proven yourself worthy not just of power, but of wisdom." She turned to me. "Queen Arya Blackwell. You have shown courage beyond measure. You have transformed curse into blessing, darkness into dawn. You have proven that the greatest strength is not in domination, but in balance." She stepped back, raising her arms. "I declare before all gathered here, let the reign of the Twilight Sovereigns begin." The chamber erupted in cheers. But I barely heard them. Because at that moment, Damon turned to me, took my hand, and finally, gave me the look I'd been waiting 3 months to see. Pure, unguarded love. "Dance with me?" he asked, as music began to play. "Always," I answered. "The wedding night we deserved." Hours later, after the ceremony and the feast and the endless receiving lines, Damon finally led me back to our chambers. Not the separate rooms we'd occupied for months. Our chambers. Together. The moment the door closed behind us, the careful restraint we'd maintained all day shattered. Damon pulled me into his arms, kissing me with 3 months of pent-up desire, 3 months of denial, 3 months of falling in love while believing we could never have each other. "Are you sure?" he whispered against my lips, even now giving me the choice. "The curse is controlled, but it's not gone. If we do this, if we complete the mate bond." I silenced him with another kiss. I've never been more sure of anything. Through our bond, I felt his last reservations crumble. He lifted me effortlessly, carrying me to the massive bed that we'd finally share. What happened next was private, sacred, ours alone. But I'll tell you this, when an alpha king bonds with his lunar vessel mate, when shadow and light join together in the most intimate way possible, the very fabric of reality shifts. Every wolf in the kingdom felt it, a pulse of pure power that resonated through pack bonds and bloodlines, strengthening them, healing old wounds, bringing hope to places that had been dark for too long. And in our chamber, wrapped in each other's arms, Damon and I finally found the peace we'd been fighting for. 6 months later. "Your Majesty! Your Majesty!" I looked up from the stack of trade agreements I was reviewing to see Kyle bursting into my office, his usual composure completely abandoned. "What is it?" I asked, immediately alert. In the months since the coronation, things had been relatively peaceful. Aldrich was imprisoned, his co-conspirators exposed and dealt with, the kingdom stabilizing under our joint rule. But Kyle's expression now was pure panic. "It's the king," he panted. "The shadow magic, it's acting strange. He's in the training yard, and, Your Majesty, you need to see this." I ran. The sight that greeted me in the training yard made my heart stop. Damon stood in the center of the practice ring, surrounded by a vortex of shadow and light spiraling around him like a tornado. But it wasn't out of control. It was dancing. Playing. And floating in the air in front of him, suspended by tendrils of silver-black energy, were a dozen training dummies, moving in perfect choreography like puppet dancers. When he saw me, Damon grinned, a real, unguarded grin full of joy. "Arya! Watch this." He flicked his wrist, and the dummies exploded into confetti that rained down like snow. I stared at him. Then at the confetti. Then back at him. "You turned the shadow magic into entertainment?" I asked incredulously. "I turned it into art," he corrected, walking over to pull me into his arms. "Turns out, when darkness isn't fighting light, when they're working together instead of against each other, you can do pretty much anything." He spun me around, and suddenly we were dancing in the falling confetti, surrounded by that beautiful spiral of shadow and light. "I never thought I could be happy," Damon admitted quietly, his forehead resting against mine. "For so many years, I thought the curse was a punishment. That I was a monster who deserved to suffer. And now? I asked. Now I think maybe it was a gift, he said. Because if I hadn't been cursed, I would never have needed a lunar vessel. I never would have married you. I never would have found my other half. I kissed him softly. We saved each other. We did, he agreed. And now, his hand moved to rest on my stomach, where a tiny flutter of new life was just beginning to make itself known. We get to do it all over again with our daughter. I froze. How did you? I haven't told anyone yet. I can feel her through our bond, Damon said, his eyes shining with tears. A little spark of light and shadow, already so strong. She's going to be extraordinary, Arya. Just like her mother. I couldn't speak. Could only hold on to him as joy and terror and love overwhelmed me. A child. Part lunar vessel, part shadow walker. The first of a new generation. The first Twilight princess. The end.